What if a single strike in the Middle East could set the global oil market on fire, trigger worldwide inflation, and shake economies as far away as Bangladesh? What if the remittances sent home by millions of migrant workers suddenly came under threat because of a war thousands of miles away? This is no longer a distant geopolitical theory. It is a rapidly unfolding reality. Tensions between Iran and the United States have reached a boiling point, and the world is watching what could become one of the most dangerous confrontations in recent history. From soaring fuel prices to economic instability, the consequences of a full-scale conflict would ripple across continents, affecting every nation, every market, and potentially every household. Just yesterday in Geneva, a final round of high-level talks was held between Iran and the United States in an urgent attempt to prevent direct confrontation. After at least 6 separate rounds of negotiations, the two sides failed to reach a framework agreement or even a basic understanding. Senior officials returned home empty-handed. Diplomacy, at least for now, has stalled. And when diplomacy fails, history tells us what often comes next. According to multiple reports, Washington has begun extensive military preparations, while also giving what many analysts describe as a green signal to Israel to prepare for possible strikes inside Iran. In a critical emergency meeting with military leaders, former U.S. President Donald Trump made explosive claims about Iran's intentions. He alleged that Iran is preparing intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of striking not only Europe, but potentially the United States mainland. According to his statement, Iran has rapidly rebuilt parts of its nuclear infrastructure, despite previous operations, including what he referred to as the Midnight Hammer mission, which he claimed had once crippled Tehran's nuclear program. He argued that diplomatic efforts had failed and warned that the United States would never allow what he described as a state sponsor of terrorism to become a nuclear-armed power. However, launching military action is not a unilateral decision. The U.S. Congress demanded clear justification. Standing before lawmakers, Trump argued that Iran is actively developing nuclear weapons capability and missile systems capable of carrying such payloads. He framed the situation as an immediate national security threat, urging Congress to authorize the use of force. Reports indicate that he has effectively secured congressional backing, at least informally, strengthening the possibility of imminent military action. At the same time, Washington has taken a highly significant step, ordering American citizens in Israel to leave the country within 48 hours. This directive has been widely reported by major international outlets, including NBC News. The move is being interpreted by military analysts as one of the clearest signals yet that a strike could be imminent. It is extremely unusual for the United States to evacuate or advise evacuation from one of its closest allies unless serious escalation is expected. Strategic analysts suggest that if military action begins, Israel would likely launch the first strike, with the United States supporting or responding afterward. Washington has reportedly indicated that it does not intend to fire the opening shot. However, if Iran retaliates, particularly against Israeli territory, U.S. interests and installations in the region could become high-value targets. American embassies, military command structures, and strategic facilities would be at risk. Israel is home to many dual citizens holding both Israeli and American nationality, and removing them from potential conflict zones reduces domestic political pressure in Washington should hostilities erupt. Earlier in February, during a previous round of talks, Trump had issued a firm deadline. If no agreement was reached before March, severe consequences would follow, potentially through military means. Now, as February 28th marks the expiration of that deadline, speculation is intensifying. Historically, Trump has portrayed himself as a leader who enforces his deadlines, and analysts believe that maintaining that image could influence the timing of any action. Airlines around the world appear to be reacting accordingly. Several major carriers have suspended flights to Tel Aviv through March 6th. Anadolu agency reported that global aviation companies are adjusting routes amid escalating risk assessments. Air India has temporarily halted operations to Israel, and major European carriers, including Lufthansa and Swiss International Airlines, have followed similar precautionary measures. When international aviation giants suspend flights, it is often a reflection of serious intelligence warnings about potential airspace instability. Reports suggest that U.S. allies have been quietly informed that significant developments could occur before March 6th. The concern is not only about an initial strike, but about the inevitable retaliation. Iran has declared that even a limited attack would trigger countermeasures against U.S. bases across the region. That means American installations in the Middle East could quickly become active battlegrounds. What begins as a limited strike could spiral into a regional war, one that pulls in multiple actors and destabilizes global energy supply lines. And this is where the global impact becomes unavoidable. The Middle East remains central to the world's oil production. Any disruption, even temporary, could send crude prices soaring. Higher oil prices translate into increased transportation costs, rising food prices, and inflation across both developed and developing economies.
Countries like Bangladesh, heavily reliant on imported fuel and overseas remittances, could face severe economic pressure. If Gulf economies are destabilized, migrant workers may suffer job losses or reduced income, directly affecting foreign currency reserves back home. The key question now is whether the United States can control escalation if Iran retaliates aggressively. Can Washington contain a conflict within limited boundaries, or would retaliation draw the region into a broader war? Iran's leadership has repeatedly signaled that any attack, no matter how small, would be answered forcefully. The coming days may determine whether diplomacy can be revived, or whether the Middle East is on the brink of another major war. As the March deadline passes and military preparations intensify, the world holds its breath, because if conflict erupts, its shockwaves will not stop at the borders of Iran or Israel. They will echo across global markets, political systems, and everyday lives worldwide.